and not be stuck on some kind of mental prison of political partisanship to understand everything that we see in front of us. Over the weekend, everybody was concerned. We talked about it on Friday as it was happening, with President Trump being airlifted to Walter Reed Medical after having been diagnosed with COVID-19. And today, we've just heard from Donald Trump on his Twitter page that he is scheduled to be released at 6:30 p.m. Eastern today. He says, feeling really good. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We have developed under the Trump administration some really great drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago. Those are the words of President Donald Trump on his Twitter page today, about an hour ago. He also said, it is reported that the media is upset because I got into a secure vehicle to say thank you to the many fans and supporters who were standing outside of the hospital for many hours and even days to pay their respect to their president. If I didn't do it, media would say rude. I think Donald Trump cares too much about the media because he wants to be liked. And he seems to have a fascination with wanting those outlets and those pundits and figures. For example, Christopher Wallace, he gives them too much respect because of their media clout and everything, and he wants them to like him. And he spends too much of his time worrying about, how the media, will they like me if I do this? Or, who cares about what they're doing? They're always going to do what they're doing because their job is to be a PR spokesperson for the establishment conservative, the establishment Republican and Democrat parties. So there's nothing he can do that's going to change their job description. Their job description is to carry water for perpetual war, perpetual welfare, perpetual managed trade deals, perpetual global governance, perpetual nihilistic culture, subsidized by the taxpayer. That's their job. They're not there to be persuaded one way or the other. They're there to have a very specific agenda. It's like saying, if you don't, it's like trying to convince Samsung, going to their PR department and saying, I've got to convince you somehow, you guys that work at Samsung's PR department, I've got to convince you somehow, some way to like what I've got here at Apple or Sony or whatever, right? It doesn't really matter what you do. Their job description is to do public relations for the company called Samsung. And that's the same for the corporate press. The corporate press's job is to do the public relations for the massive corporations and government agencies that depend on the public going along with endless wars, endless military spending, endless saber rattling and fear mongering about Russia, North Korea, China, and so forth. And because Donald Trump doesn't play the script on every aspect, he does it on a lot, but not on every aspect, that is too much of a risk for the establishment to handle. That is too much of a wild card for the establishment. They just can't handle that. So that's what we're dealing with, folks. We're dealing with a PR media, and they do not have any desire to be persuaded to one side or the other about values. And I'm speaking as a hive mind as they are. I understand there are always outliers and rogue folks in any pool of people. But I'm speaking of the overall tenor of the hive mind that is represented by the corporate press. If you are not for managed trade deals, if you are not for global organizations like the WHO and WTO, if you're not for perpetual military fear-mongering, if you're not for social justice, cultural nihilism, if you're not for decadent hedonism, if you're not for any of those things, then the corporate press, their job is to be against you. That's what they're paid for. They are PR firms for the establishment narrative. And they're falling apart, and it's failing. And they just can't keep up with the reality they've tried to manage. So this was a story of being distracted by what the corporate press wants you to be distracted by. They made a big deal out of Donald Trump visiting or driving by to see his supporters. That's what you call someone who's obsessed. You ever heard of like a stalker? They're stalking someone and they're just obsessed with everything they do. Remember that movie Swim Fan about the stalker possessive crazy person? That's what these media folks are. They're obsessed with Donald Trump. They're obsessed with everything about this person. They worship this man. That's what the left-wing media does. They worship him. And because they're obsessed like a stalker, they lose their mind when he doesn't let them know that he's going to drive by and wave at his supporters in the window. And they have to make a big deal about, oh my goodness, is there somebody that could be hurt? I mean, there's just obsessive, neurotic craziness. He's wearing a mask. The other folks in the car are wearing a mask. But they have to be obsessed with this person, like stalkers. And there's, at some point, we have to understand that we can follow a little bit about what they're doing, but it's best to just turn off this media altogether. Because there's nothing you can learn from people who are unhinged and people who are bent by envy and bent by being obsessed with fear-mongering. All they do is incite fear. And folks who are bandwagon people, and unfortunately that's too many people in millennials, my generation, they are most prone to falling into these corporate press fear-mongering campaigns. They're the ones who, they're in their 20s and 30s, and they're terrified of being fatally destroyed by this virus when a 74-year-old man like Donald Trump, with a lot of the different factors they say, like being overweight, that are considered to be a dangerous comorbidity for this virus, this man can apparently kick this thing off, it's looking like, within just a few days. And people who are 20 and 30 are terrified to go to school, terrified to go to work, terrified to let poor people who can't work from Zoom like they can go to work. They're control freak, neurotic brats. And we've got too many of these folks in the younger generation who lack the discernment to be able to see how ridiculous they look. They don't want to take charge of their health. They don't want to understand how the food pyramid had poisoned people's bodies by getting everybody stuck on polyunsaturated fatty acids, carbohydrates, processed flours, and different, garbage oils, vegetable oils. They don't want to take control of their health. They just want to be like little children, terrified of the world. If the media says they're scared, they jump. They say boo, they jump. And it's sad because, people who are in their 20s and 30s, Folks like, Martin Luther King Jr. and all kinds of folks. Jesus, 30, So many people change the world at 30 and 20. And our generation, unfortunately, can't even they're terrified of a virus to the point where they see a 74-year-old president go through it who's overweight and under an immense amount of stress, an immense amount of, factors that would go against him. And he pulls through it with a few days, and these folks are melting down because they want to scapegoat people. They're like brats. And if reality doesn't go the way they want, they melt down. That's all the media has ever done. That's all the younger generation does when the media tells them to. Media tells them there's a Nazi in the White House, they believe it. That's how dumb and gullible millions of people are. You can show them the statistics that Barack Obama deported 2 to 3 million people. And that somehow that never happened because why? Their television didn't tell them about it, so they stupidly don't even believe to this day that it happened. That's how stupid the McWoke millennial generation is. Pathetic. 2 to 3 million people. If that's your big story, and all those photos of the undocumented children being put in the dog kennels by the Obama administration, it's been said over and over and over again, even by the lying corporate press that had to admit, actually these photos were from the Obama administration. But still to this day, these infantilized brats of all age groups, but I'm particularly tough on millennials because they're trained in the internet. They should know to be a little bit more skeptical of garbage TV narratives. And they still believe that those cage photos are of Trump, not them, because they can't handle the fact that their little Mickey Mouse fantasy that Barack Obama was this little character from Ellen DeGeneres and he dances and he's just cool and he's just like me and it's just so perfect. They can't handle that stupid TV manufactured reality falling apart. They just can't handle it because it puts too much guilt in their head and it puts too much responsibility in their fingertips for the violence that has been partaken of in the society. They can't handle the reality that their Mickey Mouse politics is a stupid lie that's not based on any intellectual foundation. They want to believe they're smart, but they're not. They listen to the NPR. I was listening to NPR earlier, and they were talking about the Federal Reserve System. I wasn't listening to the show. I saw a clip about the birth of the Federal Reserve because I plan to see where that awful institution was created in Jekyll Island. And I said, let's see what NPR's clip says about it. And I watched it, and it was just shocking and ridiculous. It wasn't shocking, but it was just amazing how the NPR whitewashed and shilled for a very, very corrupt, greedy, loot-filled institution like the Federal Reserve System. They try to make it look as good and as benevolent as possible. But we know the truth. We know that the Federal Reserve was created by giant corporations for the pillaging of the people. We know that. But NPR, if you listen to NPR to get your reality, they'll tell you the Federal Reserve is the best thing that ever happened to you. And then they'll have the audacity to tell you we need to fix capitalism. No, the Federal Reserve System is what enables all the greed and the boom-bust cycle that they say is capitalism's fault. But they can't admit to that. And so folks who are dependent on news outlets like NPR and BuzzFeed, trash outlets, they're just lost. And I'm surprised that they don't have the mental, discernment to be able to see how ridiculous the crap that they believe is. We'll be back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice. More to come in just a moment. David Granosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel
to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Brandon Ford ended last year as the largest volume Ford dealer in America. And with just 3 short months left to 2020, Brandon Ford's in a neck-and-neck battle with a dealer just outside the Ford headquarters in Detroit. And Brandon Ford has a lot on the line. Becoming the world's largest volume Ford dealer is hard, but staying the number one Ford dealer is even harder. So during the battle to be number one, they're making every deal, and the prices are crazy. Like 2020 F-150 STX demo specials for just $31,900. Everything's on sale. No exceptions, no exclusions, all month long. Brandon Ford's entire inventory, 2,000 vehicles, has been slashed to sell vehicles at an incredible pace. Increase our lead and keep the heat on during the battle for number one. So come in today. The deals are going to be stupid. Brandon Ford, the largest volume Ford dealer in America. Highway 60 and 301 in Tampa, or at BrandonFord.com.
If you want to pay less, help Brandon Ford win the battle for number one.
If you want to grow your savings these days, it's good to own gold. Who wants to hold dollars in a savings account earning 0.5%? Instead, check out Monetary Metals, started by my frequent guest, Keith Weiner. They put your gold to work, and you earn 2 to 4% interest, paid out not in dollars, but in more ounces of gold. Plus, there are 0 vault fees. With several active deals open right now, they're taking new clients today. Learn more at interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. A Neighbor's Choice is back. David Granazzi, your host here. So, I'm just looking at the news headlines, and you see the media is so disappointed. They're so disappointed that they were hoping that Donald Trump, at the very least was going to be in there for a while, a long time, and there's total power game that they've tried to use this virus for has now just been totally destroyed. If a 74-year-old man of the level of anxiety, because, stress is such a factor for your immune system. And the problem people are having right now, right, is that one of the biggest problems with this virus is the fact that some people's immune systems don't know how to handle the novel new virus. And we've talked about on the program how this is related to the prevalence, we believe, of senescent cells, which are aging dysfunctional cells that people have, and they accumulate as they get older. And those prevalence of senescent cells are linked with following a diet that has been pushed by the United States government in its food policies of what they subsidize. And this is on Trump, too. Trump, goes along with the status quo on perpetuating government corporate welfare for big soy and big corn and big wheat, calls that his farmers, right? And surely there are great, well-intended, good people there, but I don't think we should ever give a pass to corporate welfare. And it's a sad thing that we have to give, pigs to China and they have to send back finished products. So something's going on fundamentally wrong at the core of our country. But the only way we're going to get anywhere is going towards freedom, which is deregulation, not fake deregulation like they say all the time. Oh, yeah, they were deregulated and that's what caused the housing crisis. No, it didn't. We all know the housing crisis was caused by the government's interventions in the economy. For years, keeping interest rates artificially low for too long. Alan Greenspan, messing with the interest rates so that people were going out and buying houses and developing things that there simply wasn't enough savings in the economy to sustain. And once that was determined, it creates a snowball effect where people pull out of housing and it creates a crisis. This was not caused by, they try to lie to people so much. Boom busts. I heard someone say the other day, boom busts are a natural cycle of a free market economy. No, they're not. That's another talking point from stooges that don't know anything about how a market works. Boom bust cycles are not a natural phenomenon of a free market economy. They are a natural product of a central bank, which happens to be one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto. And we have a central bank. It's called the Federal Reserve System. They create these boom busts for the benefit of their clients, which are the big banks, big corporations, and big government. So this is the reality that we face. So much institutionalized nonsense, so much fear-mongering, and so much lack of discernment on the part of people who I would suspect should be the best folks to discern fake news from the television. That is, younger people, millennials, Gen Z, and yet so many millions of them are so caught up by these dumb, outdated ideas that try to normalize violence. That's what the crooked cop Kamala Harris is all about, normalizing mass incarceration. That's what the crooked Joe Biden's all about, normalizing the bombing of people of color around the world. That's what these folks do, and they get these little trendies, the millennial trendies, to come out and wear T-shirts and act like they're LARPing. Oh, look, I'm part of a cool liberation movement. No, you're not. You're part of the McDonald's crap. Fake.
You know what time of year
conditions in the next 36 hours.
You know what hurricanes can do.
Devastating damage expected.
Well, we want you to know, no matter how bad things get,
Power outages.
This is life-threatening.
you can stay up to date with the latest information here. Your home for news, talk, and information. And remember, we'll keep an eye on the tropics. You keep an ear on us.
Got batteries in the flashlight.
The all-new News Talk 1040 WHBO. We got a radio.
President Trump will be released from the hospital shortly, even though he still has COVID, and his doctors say he's not out of the woods. And they left questions unanswered, such as how contagious is he? How are his lungs? What will his White House setup be? The docs, including Sean Conley, say they've briefed White House staffers on what they need to do.
Right now, there's nothing that's being done upstairs here that we can't safely conduct down home.
Dr. Jay Bott, an internist in Chicago.
The question I would have is, what is the discharge criteria? That was not clearly articulated. And what we do know from COVID, from hundreds of thousands of people dead and millions with the virus, is that nothing is off the table. And so I'd be concerned that President Trump would go back to the White House and potentially deteriorate.
Before today's briefing, the president in a tweet said, "Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life." Just about 210,000 people in the U.S. have died from COVID. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
On Neighbor's Choice, I'm David Gronowski, your host. Our website on neighborschoice.com. So for those listening on radio, you heard the news break. Again, the news, they try to act like they're some kind of objective news reporting institution, but they're a deliberate, lying, trash medium for PR talking points. Who are the PR talking points giving advantage to? They're giving advantage to fear-mongering bureaucrats in the federal government, and state governments, and they're giving an advantage to big pharma that wants to keep everybody, in a state where they have to get new patented drugs out to the market. I'm just tired of this kind of stuff happening without people just punching right back directly. So you heard that hard news break for those listening on radio. Podcast, you didn't hear it. Podcast listeners don't have that on their option there. But for the radio listeners, you hear the guy says, "Oh, President Trump says you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to fear COVID." But then 200,000 people died from COVID. So he tries to talk like a news anchor. "See, I just report the facts, and I talk this way so you think that I am above the fray." In other words, signing off. So if I talk like this, I can put my opinion in, and I can be a little shill, but you won't notice because I talk like a news anchor for a hard news program. See that stupid crap that people do? You think we can't see this? The TV era is over. We can see it. I just want more people to see it faster before we make a total mess of our country by letting this cultish devotion to the state in every aspect of our lives run amok to the point where we consume all the productive capacity in our economy to the point of oblivion. But these news anchors talk about the hard news, and they try to act, and those are the hard news programs, and it's not just TV, it's radio, it's everywhere. These folks, they're the worst, because at least, when CNN is still trying to present themselves as hard news, but we kind of figured out, you guys are just, you're just pundits trying to act like you're not pundits. It's pretty clear. And MSNBC, same way. But when you do these little hard news segments, people don't suspect that. So they're getting conditioned to hate one particular side of the perspective. And look, one does not even have to agree with Donald Trump's perspective on what he's saying. I don't believe we should get the military to give out a vaccine. That's stupid. Why do we need to have a military come out and provide a vaccine? So that stuff like that is ridiculous. But when you hear them say, Donald Trump says, don't be afraid of COVID. Meanwhile, 200,000 people died from COVID. What they're trying to do is condition your emotional feeling about this news reality. He's not going to tell you that the vast majority of those things, of those statistics of deaths, are associated with a high amount of comorbidities and other factors like advanced age. So there's no way to be able to determine exactly what was the final aspect of the different various illnesses that these people have that push them into the point of death. And every death is sacred, but we stand for life. And you know what life means? It means telling people the truth. And those little hard news shows don't tell you that the food pyramid that they shill for, which is funded by big government and corporate welfare for big giant corporations, has gotten those people into the point where you can have people dying from this new virus like this. We have an epidemic of weak metabolism. We have an epidemic of weak immune systems. We have an epidemic of people who have been totally damaged for decades and decades by eating industrial waste products like vegetable oils, soybean oil, canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, vegetable oils of every kind. They've been conditioned to put away the butter like their grandparents who lived in their 90s did, and now they go and they eat safflower and sunflower and corn oil, soybean oil, and then they eat massive processed flour and things like that. And they do that for decades, and then they have all these comorbidities develop, and they get all these other diseases, and then also COVID comes in there, and then these little robots on television say, President says don't be afraid of the virus. 200,000 people died, though. And you're supposed to, the newsman has said what he said. He's objective. No, it's a PR release. You could call it performance art. It's a press release for a particular agenda. And you see it everywhere you look. I have a perspective. I don't line up with the left or the right. I'm not part of any political party. I don't care. about which party has how many seats. At the end of the day, I've got a bigger picture in mind. I have places I want this country to go, and those places include prosperity for everyone, no more wars in perpetuity, no more foreign aid, no more heavy taxation, no more centralization of our lives in the hands of a few, no more monopoly education, no more garbage, toxic, sick care. So I have a view of where I want to go, and I'm going to go there one way or another. We're going to get there. So we all have perspectives, but these lying corporate press media outlets, they want to pretend to be little robots. I'm just providing you objective news. They don't tell you. Ask those little corporate hacks, why don't they tell you how toxic vegetable oils are becoming based on the science, and how those are correlated with the comorbidities, which are correlated with the death that they report dutifully about COVID. Why aren't they telling you the death count for cancer this year? Why don't they put that on your mind every day? That's called manipulation by selective reporting. Why don't they tell you the epidemic of heart disease deaths every day? What if they said that for your state? In Florida, 10,000 people dead from heart disease today. 11,000, 15,000, 16,000 in your county, another 100, 200. What if they did that to you every day? They could get you, or at least a large portion of the public, to do anything if they selectively targeted one particular data set, which is scary if you push it and highlight it so much and make it seem like it's in isolation. But they don't tell you the cancer ticker. They don't tell you the diabetes ticker. They don't tell you the number of deaths occurring from Alzheimer's. They don't put those numbers up there to scare you because they don't fit their agenda. Because if they put those numbers out there, then if they did that every year, you'd say, oh my goodness, there's so many people dying. This is so terrible. Who's running this system? Government, get this crap out of our lives. Get this garbage war on cancer that Nixon started and has failed to have any real significant progress in the last few decades. Get this stuff and let's try something different. Let's push this stuff out of our way. So they can't put the death counts for these diseases that single payer nutrition has led to. They can't, because they're PR firms that have convinced you that they're media. They are PR firms for a particular perspective. And the sooner we realize that, the better we're all going to be. That doesn't mean that Conservative Inc. is much better. Conservative Inc. is what I call, the groupthink mere doubles on the right. They're not much better in some ways, but at least within the right, in the conservative movement, if you go to that conversation, if you go to that frame of dialogue, you can have a conversation about things. You can talk about things and disagree and not have people freaking try to cancel your whole life, for the most part. There's a few issues that they get real cancel culture like as well. But you can go to the right and you can say, hey, I want to end the war on drugs. And another one say, well, I want to increase the war on drugs. And you can actually have that dialogue on conservative media. So what is called conservative is really just independent media. It's independent. So that includes those who are card-carrying members of the Republican Party, those who, have their own little niche views. It includes those who are diehard, loyal, whatever Trump does is all what they are all in for. You have those. And then you also have just everybody else who is an independent thinker, which includes left-wing people, includes so-called progressive people, includes all kinds of folks. And this is the area where we can make a lot of unity around, because there's a certain segment of the population that is sold out on the narratives of the Democrat Party. And these folks tend to be rich, coddled, arrogant. They have jobs where they can be on Zoom in perpetuity, so they want people who have to work hard and be in person. They want them to not have the opportunity to have a job because they have a sick, creepy, almost psychopathic desire to like control and hurt people. It's creepy, right? And then they like to justify their crazy, insane viciousness by saying that they care for people, that they stand for science, and they don't even know what science is. Most of them can't spell science on the left. When you really ask them, they don't understand the immune system. They don't understand the essential need to have a holistic approach to health. Whatever, they hear on TED Talks or whatever they hear in the corporate McDonald's media is what they buy for what science is. Most of the folks on the left think that Bill Nye, the science guy, is a scientist. They really do. And so when he does his little stupid little movie trick and he tries to act, oh, look, I'm your scientist. And they're like, oh, I saw him from my childhood. That means I can trust him. He is safe. I can trust this guy. It's a scientist. And he's saying that the whole world's going to blow up if we don't turn this country over to corporatist hacks who will spill trillions of dollars for their friends. Oh, my goodness. This is just pure science. I don't know how many people that you'll hear. I've talked to, you'll hear them. And they'll say, hey, you know what it is for me? I'm just for science. I've heard that. That's a new little brainwashed parrot line you'll hear folks say. Well-meaning people. Look, everybody's well-meaning, okay? But you'll hear this line, whenever you try to say, yeah, I don't think we should force everybody who, could have all kinds of other ill health effects and lose their entire house, lose their job, lose everything, lose their savings, lose their future, lose their marriage, lose all kinds of stuff because of a prolonged shutdown. If you try to say, I don't think that's the good way to do it. I don't think government has that power. I don't think government should pretend to have that power. And then you'll hear the little manufactured parrot line, well, I am just for the science. And you're like, okay. So the science is showing that more people are having health problems from prolonged shutdowns than are actually being saved from the virus because of the shutdowns. And then you point to Sweden, who didn't do any of this shutdown stuff, and they're already seemingly on to other things. The virus is seeming to fall down. And they say, well, you can't compare those two countries. We have a higher obesity rate and all these other things. And it's like, you're right. You're right. We do eat more vegetable oils than Sweden. And who subsidized that? Your God government did. Your fake science in the food pyramid, in the USDA for decades and decades, pushing science in the direction of no-win solutions that push an agenda for giant corporations that want food to be promoted in the direction of plant foods, because those are the foods that you use to make what? Processed foods from, that can have long shelf lives. So they get massive government subsidies, and the research dollars are massive government rigged and pushed in that direction, and they have demonized animal fats. They have demonized holistic eating. They have demonized nose-to-tail ancestral eating. They've demonized getting back to the basics of what we know our ancestors did, and try to put us in a state where we don't even remember our roots as humans. And they've demonized all of this truth, and then they have the audacity to condition the low information people who listen to the TV media and the government bureaucrats. Oh, we stand for science. The only science they know is criminal science, because it's criminal what the government has done. It's criminal to take people's money by force for decade after decade and use that to subsidize failed nutrition paradigms that put people in situations where you have such a high comorbidity prevalence in our society. So it's such that a new virus comes along and it can kill people in a way that it shouldn't. This is the science. This is the glory of the science of this kind of thinking. having your government, control so much of your reality that they tell you to stop eating butter, which has been consumed for thousands of years. They tell you to stop eating beef tallow and replace your oil with vegetable oil, garbage, industrial waste slop. They tell you to stop eating, real sugar and replace it with the garbage stuff. They tell you to stop eating, all these things that we've eaten for thousands of years and replace it with garbage. And they subsidize the garbage. So it makes it, even if they didn't tell you in their nutrition advice, they still make it very difficult for people to eat the real foods, because the dirt cheap foods that they are forced to pay for because of the glory of taxation is so dirt cheap. It's easier to get into those addictive foods and beyond with your day because it's cheap and easy and ready to go. So yeah, let's talk about Sweden. Let's talk about why we have such a high problem with comorbidities in this country. And it has a lot to do with the failure of our false god, the state, telling us what to eat and lying every step of the way, whether they knew it or not. They have propped up pseudoscience trash, and lives have been killed in the process. Lives have been destroyed, and our economy is in shambles. And thousands of people, not just of COVID, but of various illnesses, are dying early deaths in very painful and awful ways that didn't need to happen. It's because government is not our God, and they don't know anything about what science is. We'll be back in just a moment for more on Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Granosky.
David Granosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
Not ready to go to your favorite seafood restaurant? Get the highest quality fish for less delivered straight to your door by Fast Fresh Seafood. Order our fresh hot snapper, grouper, mahi, and more. They're boneless, skinless, flash frozen the same day, and individually vacuum wrapped. Pick the size filet you want, the amount you want, and checkout's easy at fastfreshseafood.com. The best thing, every fish is on sale. Fastfreshseafood.com. Caught fresh for you, delivered straight to you. Stay home and stay safe.
The following message is brought to you by Moffitt Cancer Center.
Hi, I'm Jan Berry. The leading cancer among women is breast cancer. I am a breast cancer survivor.
Hi, and I'm Richard Gosmartin. The leading cause of cancer among men is prostate cancer. I am a prostate cancer survivor.
I had very little symptoms and was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer.
And I had no symptoms when I was diagnosed with stage 1 prostate cancer.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whatever the month is, I urge you to get tested.
September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Trust me, guys, it can save your life. Get tested.
Our marketing partners bring you this vital message as a reminder to get tested. Do it for yourself. Do it for your family.
And your life can depend on it.
Moffitt Cancer Center. Move for what matters. Miles for Moffitt virtual event on October 24th. Milesformoffitt.com.
If you want to grow your savings these days, it's good to own gold. Who wants to hold dollars in a savings account earning 0.5%? Instead, check out Monetary Metals, started by my frequent guest, Keith Weiner. They put your gold to work, and you earn 2 to 4% interest, paid out not in dollars, but in more ounces of gold. Plus, there are 0 vault fees. With several active deals open right now, they're taking new clients today. Learn more at interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David.
media is terrified that once again Donald Trump seems to be destroying another of their sacred cows. He's looking to be released in just a short while from now, which will kind of go against the whole frame of what they've been building, which is that this new virus is worthy of having a national mask mandate, of having schools closed, of having businesses closed, of having our entire economy destroyed by toddlers, tyrannical toddlers, like politicians and government bureaucrats. And this man, 74 years old, overweight, different little factors, male, high stress job. Stress is such a big factor for keeping your immune system strong. Said to be eating a taboo diet of lots of red meat. And so this gentleman is going to get out of the hospital in about an hour and a half from now, from when I'm talking. So they're scared. They're terrified because corporate press, PR, spokespeople are in the business of selling fear and selling devotion to the state. And so when a 74-year-old man who's the president of the United States, what would Barack Obama, if Barack Obama got this virus, he would use it as an opportunity to say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm allowing the head of the WHO to take over as president. We're going to turn this into a moment for a global community. He would play ball on the McDonald's or the Mickey Mouse, whatever you want to call it. It's the same slop, that fake little narrative that the politically correct media likes to sell, their awful, violent, bigoted policies of centralized control over our lives. But Donald Trump uses the opportunity to say, don't be afraid of this virus. That's a good message to hear. I don't care what about the policies that we can disagree on. That's a good message to hear. Don't be afraid about this virus. Don't be afraid. That's a good message. The media operates based on pushing us into perpetual fear. They want, every time there's a crisis, they want to build up the fear and cash it in with government control. Remember what the disaster was with the boom bust that the Federal Reserve created with the housing market? So many people lost their jobs, their houses, and so forth. It was all created by government intervention, all created by the Federal Reserve. They lied, made their little Hollywood movies trying to cover up what really happened, try to rewrite the textbook so that we always remember, well, see, folks, the reason why we had this is because you had too much freedom. So what do? They do more bailouts. They give tons of stimulus that goes to giant corporations. They just loot and destroy our economy, destroy our savings, destroy our freedom, destroy our ability to start a job. Because they use crises to push fear, which gets us to submit psychologically to the grifting. So there was a new crisis, a real virus with real deadly effects. They said, oh, this is perfect. We'll use this to sell fear because Trump's too much of a wild, loose cannon. We want a steady, dependable water boy for the establishment, just like we always have. And Trump, he carries water on a lot of things, but he goes off script, and that is too much to handle for such a fragile, crooked enterprise like the folks in the swamp. Their little game of grift, their little game of corruption is too fragile for someone that's just even slightly off script. They cannot survive. And so this is a good moment to show you the narratives that they have falling apart. Their attempts to control reality are falling apart right in front of our eyes. And people who live on fear, who crave staying in that fear, they're triggered when their president says, don't fear. It angers them. Because they say, what do you mean, don't fear? My religion, which is the state and central planners, fake science, my religion tells me that the only thing we have to do is to wait for the state to tell us which of their crony allies have created the new patented drug that we can take. And that all I have to do is just wait. They don't understand where money comes from. They say they're for science. They don't know how money is generated. They don't know how they think money is just printed and that's all you got to do. They think wealth is just printed. They don't understand the folks that depend on this fear matrix for meaning. So that's what we have to deal with. Pushing back against that contagion of fear. We have to push back against the lie that the state knows how to take care of us from cradle to grave. We have to push back from the lie that economies can just be turned on and turned off. We have to push back from the lie that we need the government to manage our relationships amongst gender, amongst race, amongst various different artificial barriers.
Your home
push
for
back from it all.
news, talk, and information.